Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. Did you miss my face? Welcome back to another video talking about the X-Wing meta. This video is well overdue. The tournament we're going to talk about today happened not last weekend, but the weekend before. I was going to make this video around Tuesday, Wednesday last week, but then Wave 14 was announced. The Harry Potter board game core set was announced. And then I recorded some videos with Gareth and we talked a bit about Star Wars Legion, and here we are, the middle of the week after. So sorry this is so late. This is the X-Wing Regionals for the ACT. That's the Australian Capital Territory. If you have a look at this picture over here, I will edit in post. The ACT is inside New South Wales. There's this tiny little blob just here. It's the place where we host our Systems Open. I mean, we don't actually have a FFG supported Systems Open in Australia. Really hope that changes soon, but we do have an unofficial one, which always does quite well. The tournament was hosted by Jolt Games, and by all accounts, it sounds like it went rather well. Let's take a look at the top 8 lists from this tournament. So once again, we had a top 8 for this regionals. We had 2 scum lists, 2 imperial lists, and 4 rebel lists. Pretty much the same pattern that we've been seeing throughout all the regionals so far. The size breakdown was interesting. We only had 3 large base ships and 22 smalls. Basically, this tournament just favoured more lists that flew more ships, which we can see right here. We had 2 squads of 2 ships, 4 squads of 3 ships, a squad of 4, and a squad of 5. And we'll talk a bit more about that squad a bit later on, but this is interesting because over the past few tournaments, we've been seeing a trend towards the 2-ship squads, mainly in Miranda, Nim, and the likes. So it's interesting to see a bit more flavour here. In fact, this tournament only had 1 Miranda Nim in the top 8, and that's a good sign moving forward, I think. As for the type of ships being flown, we had a clear winner in the Skirg H6 bomber. We had a Captain Nim on Scum and on Rebel, and 3 Lock Revenants. 2 quick draws in his TIE SF, 2 Miranda Donis, 2 Green Squadron A-Wings, and 2 Lambda Shuttles, 2 Phantom 2s, and 2 Captain Rexes in his Rebel TIE Fighter. A very interesting blend, I must say. In terms of big meta lists, we didn't really see a lot of that in this tournament. As I said, we had 1 Miranda Nim, we had no Fenrir Kanans, and we had no TIE Silencers, and we had no Alpha Class Starwings. So this one was a bit of an anomaly. I don't think this is going to be a trend moving forward, but a nice little event nonetheless. Let's actually talk about a couple of the lists before we go on to the winner as well. And this is that 5-off list I was talking about by Andrew Frederick. And this is just really good, low-to-the-ground, basic, efficient rebels. And I really like the flavour of this. I've told you guys about AP5. I love this pilot. I think it's going to do a lot of work moving forward. The Weapons Engineer M9G8 package is very, very interesting. It means you can give 2 of your friendly ships rerolls, sort of like a quasi-predator, or you can force your opponent to reroll their attack dice to make their attacks less efficient. Captain Rex also helps you lock down stuff on the ground. As I said before, he's pretty much the best 14 points in the game right now. We have a bit of a light stress bot Y-Wing here. Usually this runs TLT, not dorsal turret, but dorsal turret's a good competitive sort of budget option, and a couple of Green Squadron A-Wings with Snapshot, Duke, and Shard and Refit and A-Wing Test Pilot, which is all very interesting. Like, there's nothing insane or synergistic about any of this kind of stuff. And it's all just nice and low to the ground and just a really good solid 5-off list. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. If any of you Rebel players want to try a sort of quote-unquote swarm, this would be a really fun one to try. Another list I want to talk about is this one by Josh Parks, and we had a bit of a chat last week about harpoon missiles, and I actually talked about that list during that video. Because we've seen 3 Lock Revenants before in the meta. It did really well right after the Wave 11 release, kind of dropped off a bit. We're not seeing 3 Skirg lists do that well in the meta anymore. And what's interesting about this is Lock Revenants usually rely on some good utility across the board. Auto blaster cannons, sometimes cruise missile, sometimes a bit of a spice with some intel agent or Boba Fett or some kind of interesting crew. But the whole idea behind them is they have a good all-round game strategy and they can adapt to a lot of situations. This list does not do that. This is a hardcore Alpha Strike list. What Josh has done here is basically strip out all the utility of the ship and just stuck in harpoon missiles with extra munitions. And look, I spoke about this before. This is kind of telling of the power of harpoon missiles. It just goes to show, even a ship like the Skirg Bomber, which kind of relies on versatility, you can just strip out all that versatility, strap on harpoon missiles, and you have a competitive list. And I honestly don't know how I feel about that. I feel like this list probably shouldn't do as well as it's doing because it does strip out a lot of that versatility. I will say though, I love the include of Boba Fett here. He's going to do so much work in this list. It's a bit of spice to an otherwise pretty generic Alpha Strike list, but it's just an interesting tidbit I want to talk about, guys, and this is one of the things which really makes me a bit unsure about harpoon missiles, a bit uneasy about how they're affecting the meta. But without further ado, let's talk about the winner in Travis Foss. If any of you follow the Australian X-Wing meta, you guys should know about Travis Foss by now. Very, very good player. This is a Palp Aces list with Quick Draw and the Inquisitor. Quick Draw has expertise, fire control systems, lightweight frame, and spec up training. The Inquisitor has PTL, TIE, V1, and auto thrusters, and the Palp shuttle is piloted by Captain Yaw and has collision detector and, of course, Palp. And this is just a really good, solid Palp list. The Inquisitor in Quick Draw has been a bit more of a favoured choice these days, and it's no surprise as to why. Quick Draw can just pump out so much damage. He's a bit less of a dodgy ace like your Omega Leader or Sunterfels of old, but he's putting out so much damage. Yes, you basically want him to get shot, and that's okay. Between expertise, fire control system, and spec ops training, he's going to sling so many dice that he can capitalise off the damage he takes and win you the damage race. And of course, the Inquisitor, I don't need to talk about this guy. This guy is nuts. 31 points. This list does so much work. That dial's incredible. Push the limit means you always get that target lock, which always gives you that free evade token. And of course, he's always slinging 3 dice. Even if he's fighting at range 3, he still gets the benefit of auto thrusters. I think this guy's a super competitive choice for 31 points, and it's really difficult on the Empire to justify anything else for 31 points. It's just that competitive. Captain Yaw's an interesting include, and I like him here because he helps the Inquisitor strip the stress off PTL. He's pretty much going to push every single turn. It also means we can strip the stress off of Quick Draw. Quick Draw has expertise, and that's very powerful. You really don't want Quick Draw getting stressed in this. By using Captain Yaw, you can make sure that expertise is up and your firepower is going to beat out your opponent's firepower. And that's just great value. It is worth noting that last week we talked about the preview of Wave 14, and I think this list going forward, if it does still exist in the meta after the Wave 14 release, I think we will be changing out that collision detector for the targeting scrambler. I think that's just going to be way too powerful on the Palp shuttle. Collision detector here is just a free upgrade that might be relevant sometimes, but you know, who cares if it's not? It really doesn't matter. It costs 0 points. It's a free upgrade basically. And it's just a really good, powerful list. It's great to see Palp Aces back in the meta. I know a lot of you guys think it's very oppressive and sort of was in control of the meta for too long, but I've always liked it. Even though I'm not an Imperial player myself, I think it's just good. It harkens back to the pureness of what X-Wing wants to be, about arc dodging, about just slinging dice at your opponent. No auto damage, just a great solid list with solid stats and a lot of fun to play. Anyway, guys, that was the top 8 from the ACT X-Wing Regionals for 2018. Stay tuned. In just over a week's time, we have both the South Australia and the Tasmania Regionals to talk about. That'll be a very busy weekend for me. It's nice to see a few lists that don't include harpoon missiles or Miranda Nim doing well in the meta. I don't begrudge people for flying these lists, but it's nice to see a bit of variety. Anyway, guys, in the meantime, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and I will catch you later.